I would like to talk tonight about the evolution of Bolles+Wilson, our design philosophy, if one could call it that. I think it's not actually a philosophy, it's much more to do with Anglo-Saxon empiricism, simply solving problems when they come up and making up the project as you go along. I'm of a generation, a pre-digital generation, who's learned to do architecture drawing by hand. This first image I'm showing you is one of my early drawings, which was very widely published. The subject of my lecture is small buildings. I think very important for young architects, because often for a young architect, the first building you ever do is a little house for your grandmother's dog. This is a very small building. Small buildings for me are like little experiments there, and they have a limited frame of reference, or actually not a limited frame of reference, a limited scale of production. Maybe a few words about the act of drawing. I have experienced in my career this radical change we've all gone through from hand drawing to digital drawing. I think from the point of view of my generation, and we are very nostalgic about the time of hand drawing, it was a very direct way of doing architecture. I now see my early works like this one as belonging to something one could call the Indian summer of hand drawings. It's like the end of a particular technology which is endemic to architecture. Maybe it's not the end. I think maybe we now have hybrid drawings which mix hand and digital means. I certainly hope so. This drawing took me 3 weeks to draw. It's called The Water House. It's for me an archetypal house. It's a house placed on a theoretical location where a mountain stream is crossed by a building, and that building converts the stream into a canal. It's about turning nature into artifice, or into something useful. You see on the roof of the house there's also water, there's steam coming out of the atrium. There's also a pump house on the right-hand side. And this drawing was done at a time where one can now say in retrospect where the ideology of functionalism had run out of steam. Steam is a very good metaphor with a water house. I think the task that we identified, I was at this time teaching at the AA in London, the task which we identified then was to re-explore the semiotic dimension of architecture as a means of communication. We were very much influenced by Architektur parlante, but I'm sure you as students are well aware of the history of architecture. I don't want to do a history lecture. I would like to compare that drawing to this little house we've recently built in Germany. This is a very small house, 140 square meters. It happens to be highly sustainable, but sustainability is not our subject. I think what our subject is, one best reads by the yellow color in the window. It's a house which looks like it's warm and cozy inside. As you can see, Germany is very cold in winter. It's a house in a very typical German suburb. One sees on the left and the right houses with typical pitched roofs. The sustainability is to do with it having a very, very thick skin, 50 centimeters, or mostly insulation, and it also using thermal energy from the ground. It is almost a zero energy house. I think if one could relate back to the 3 criteria from Vitruvius, firmitas, commoditas, venustas, I think this one is about commoditas. It's about comfort, about architecture serving its users. Another small building on the left. This building has a plan 4 by 4 meters. It happens to be very tall as well. It's part of a shopping center, a competition we won in the Dutch city of Hengelo. As you can see, there's already one tower on the city hall in the background, and also a church tower. We saw the possibility here of making a triangle between church, government and commerce. The Campanile was something we put into our competition design. Our clients, the developers of the shopping centre, did not want to build it. The mayor of the town said he must have a campanile. And we had a long conversation with our developers. The story of this tower is about our pragmatic way of thinking. As we designed this tower, we gradually added more and more windows. You see halfway up, one window and 3 at the bottom. These windows have digital screens for advertising, and with four digital screens, they brought in enough income to pay for the construction of the tower. Our clients were very happy then. This is Anglo-Saxon pragmatism. Another very little tower. This is the advent of the digital era. We were planning a waterfront in Rotterdam, and we wanted one little symbol or signal of the activity there. So we decided to do a tower of electronic numbers, a tower which is full of little LED screens of the time, the temperature. That's it built. One sees that the number at the top is meant to be the world population. It's always turning very quickly at one end as people are born, as babies are born. It looks like a cigarette burning. One of the numbers whizzes around in a circle. This was a very interesting experiment for us. We built it, and 10 years later the numbers started dying. They were contracting digital Alzheimer's. The city of Rotterdam did not want to restore them. It was very old technology by then. LED boxes from 10 years ago was completely out of date. So we finally managed to save one of the digital numbers. They burn very brightly at night, and they're always changing across the skyline of the city. This was our last attempt at a digital facade. I seriously do not believe media facades have anything to do with architecture. The fundamental difference between media and architecture is that media comes to us wherever we are, and we go to architecture wherever it is. Architecture is place-specific. This is another little pavilion, also in Rotterdam, only half a kilometre from the number tower. This one has the name Maskant. Maskant is a famous Dutch architect, a modernist architect. Maskant also means, in the Dutch language, it means the edge of the river Maas. This is like a building with a subtext, with subtitles. It's the pavilion for a hotel terrace cafe. The hotel wanted to serve on all 4 sides. All 4 sides are restaurant counters. So we did not want any columns interrupting the glass facade. So we made the supporting columns outside the actual pavilion, and the pavilion, or the roof of the pavilion, hangs from this mega roof. It's rather like a daddy long-legged spider, the whole building, but still a small building. This is maybe our archetypal small building. It's in Tokyo. We were lucky enough, because of our teaching at the AA in the 1980s, to have lots of contact with Japan. I was in Tokyo teaching a workshop together with Toyo Ito, and the workshop was organized by somebody who became our client for this house. It's called the Suzuki House. Akira Suzuki is an architectural journalist, somebody who knows a lot about architecture, knows lots of architects. I think he chose a foreign architect so he would not have problems with the Japanese architecture world. If he chose one of them to build his house, the others would be upset. The site he owned was 5.5 by 7.5 meters. Incredibly small, even for Tokyo standards. It's called a half site in Tokyo. Also in Tokyo, when you build a building, you must leave 0.5 meter gap to the next building. These are laws to do with earthquakes, which reduce the size of the house even more. Tokyo, for us, having this experience of building in Tokyo, became a very important paradigm for our view of how cities are read. In Tokyo, Tokyo is so dense that the size of the house does not automatically mean it's luxurious. And what is luxurious is empty space. If you have an empty room, that is absolute luxury, if you can afford not to use your room. We designed this house as one single room. It is in fact a concrete box, one concrete box, which has platforms for the family to sleep on. I'll show you those in a minute. It is also a house which is has a narrative, a discourse regarding the digital evolution which was at that time underway. Toyo Ito at that time was writing about Tokyo, calling it the electronic city. I think the Japanese were the first to understand the monumental change we were about to go through in the 1980s. I was very interested but very confused by Toyo Ito's category of ephemeral architecture. I could not imagine how architecture could be ephemeral. I'm a materialist who believes in concrete and stone and wood, etc. So we developed for other projects in Japan the metaphor of the ninja. As you know from Japanese mythology, from manga comics, the ninja is the assassin. It's the figure who can enter any room. He can walk upside down on the ceiling. He can come into a room, kill somebody, and leave again, and nobody knows he's been there. It's much like information broadcast from satellites. He can enter any room that we are in. We wanted to do a piece of architecture which looked like it had been influenced by this rain of satellite information. The black mark on the facade is as if the house has been hit. We call it a house glanced by a digital ninja. The word glanced in English has many meanings. Glanced means to look at somebody. It also means to lightly touch them, to bump them. So this glance by the ninja, by the digital ninja, is actually, it's like a bruise on the facade. It's actually embossed 1 centimeter into the concrete. It's not painted on, it's actually set into the concrete, as if the house has been hit by something invisible. Across this hit by information, we have placed 4 different windows. One, the horizontal window, is at the western sitting height. If you sit at the breakfast table at a chair, you can look out this window. One is at Japanese sitting height on the left. So if our Japanese clients sit on the floor, they can look out this window. That window is also important for delivering furniture. This house is so small, the staircase is only 60 centimeters wide. It's impossible to carry a bed or a sofa up the staircase. There's a small crane arm over the left window, so the furniture can be delivered through the window. Much of our architecture is to do with solving practical problems like this. It also, if one would like to give it a theoretical base, there is a phrase we used for a long time from the French philosopher Lyotard, who described our current time as being a time where there are no longer grand narratives of theoretical causality. Today we only have the small narratives of practical possibility. This is the clue to our architecture. The window in the center is like the eye of a cyclops. It's the interface between the private interior world and the world of the city. One sees it here on the left. The house is made from concrete. It has no insulation, totally unsustainable. Our clients told us when we built this house that the Japanese have made a communal decision not to feel cold, which solves many of the architect's problems. Their daughter, or the children's room, is this concrete box at the top of this picture. Their daughter, who grew up in this concrete box, visited us recently in London. We were very keen to meet her. We wanted to see if she had any psychological damage from growing up in a 2 by 2.5 meter concrete box. But she was a very nice, very well-adjusted girl. And we asked her how she explained this black mark on the facade to her Japanese schoolgirl friends. She said, "Oh, that's easy. I told them it was a panda bear," which is, I think, for me, absolutely fantastic. This is architecture parlante. This is the users inventing their own narratives for the architecture. I cannot show you a site plan where that house is to be found in Tokyo. I do not know where it is in Tokyo. Tokyo is for us a very interesting paradigm for urban planning. It seems to us Westerners as if in Tokyo the whole, the whole matrix, the whole formula of the city is to be found on every block. It's like the plate of a hologram. If you break the plate of a hologram, the entire image is contained in every fragment. I don't know why, but it's a very good metaphor for architects. This is as close as we came to a site plan. You see the little house at the end of that black sweep, and you see other little machines that one finds on roofs in Tokyo. Satellite dishes, water tanks, air conditioners. Our reading of Tokyo was that in every block, or every block is like the DNA of the city. You can find on every block every typology. You could find high-rise, you can find a traditional house, a ruined building, a vending machine, a convenience store. Every block is like a repetition of the module of the city. Continuing with small buildings, our family of small buildings, this is another one in Rotterdam, close to the Tower of Electronic Numbers. This is a building, a technical building for the harbour technicians. From this building they opened 6 or 8 opening bridges. Rotterdam, being the biggest harbour in Europe, has lots of big ships which come up the Maas River. The choreography of the harbour is done from this little building. I like very much this photograph, which is when the building was new. It is very big, very wide, very empty. It could be in Finland. The water is frozen, the sky is northern cold winter, and the building anchors its site. It sits there and becomes like the measuring stick for the whole site. One sees it grows out of the quay, out of the edge of the water. We actually built the whole quay ourselves, the whole wharf. The building actually only just stands on land. This is the same building 10 years later. The city has grown up to the building and almost engulfed it. Directly behind our building is a tower by Renzo Piano. It was at the time the biggest media facade in Europe. I think when Renzo Piano built his media facade, the biggest media facade in Europe, our media Tower of Numbers chose to turn off its lights. It died of embarrassment. You see in the background the Erasmus Bridge by Ben van Berkel. It was built at the same time as our water edge. This is the front of the same building. It's a schizophrenic building, black on the back, white on the front, yellow on the south side. It has a triangular plan which is to do with the structural possibilities. The 3 columns at the front stand on the only 2 loading points, the only 2 points where columns exist below the pier. And this is the same building after the Dutch architects built a building behind. I'm very fond of this picture, which shows that even small components of cities can maintain their importance, even with very big brother neighbours. I was very pleased that the Dutch architects caused their building to get darker at the bottom so that our white facade would remain in the foreground. This is a drawing of that same building on the bottom right-hand side, the same little building on the corner of the quay. The little red building on the right at the top is the Tower of Electronic Numbers. This drawing was done as part of a workshop with the planning department of Rotterdam. We were planning how the new office towers at the top of the picture should end and how this traffic junction should work. Our proposal here was this red object on the corner, a hinge building. We called it at that time a blob. This was before blobs became overworked in the architecture world. The Dutch could not pronounce the word blob and called it the bloop. We were very fond of having designed a building called the bloop. The city of Rotterdam very wisely decided to do a building on the site of the bloop to put a cultural program there. They decided to build a theatre there and did a competition with 5 Dutch architects and our German office as the only foreigners. We were lucky enough to win the competition. This is the Luxor Theatre. I can advise you it's very dangerous to win a competition against Rem Koolhaas in his hometown. He was not happy. When we won this competition, the Dutch architectural press were very critical. They said it's just a piece of German functionalism, which means that it works. It is unusual in Holland. How it works, the site basically designed the building. It's a 360-degree building. If we go back to this image, one sees that On the left-hand side, there's also water. It's a building which does not connect to any block structure or any morphological neighbor. Every side is like the front. So we decided to do a 360-degree facade, which wraps the whole building. The facade starts with the fly tower, the tower above the stage. I can recommend you do every competition you see for theatres. Theatres are wonderful buildings to build, to work on. They firstly, spatially, they have the stage has a 40-meter void above the stage. You have to build a huge empty space. Very easy for an architect. You don't have to put any program into it. The actors come and do that later. The other very good thing about theatres is that the theatre people are very good clients, and they describe their place of work as saying that every night is party night in the theatre. And our Luxor Theatre has been described as the best party location in Rotterdam, which we are very happy about. I think this is a much better validation of our building than any number of publications in architectural magazines. We also used the name of the building, the Luxor name as text. We actually developed a particular typeface here with Dutch graphic designers, the Luxor text typeface, which we used for the to signal the entrance. This is a small sketch, 12 by 12 centimeters, from one of my sketchbooks. If any of you are traveling through Frankfurt Airport and see a little black book, I would advise you to pick it up and keep it. I lost my sketchbook with this drawing in it in Frankfurt Airport. The point of this drawing is not about the precise geometries of the architecture. It's about the life of the building, about the event of an opening night. It's about people coming, wet roads reflecting flashing lights, which actually turned out to be the case with a theatre. This is inside the Luxor Theatre, celebrating their 10-year anniversary. One can see that it's a big event. People are greeting each other. The Luxor Theatre shows mostly variety, mostly comedy shows or comedians or musicals. Rotterdam, being a harbour city, has a very big working class culture, and the variety theatre is very important to people from the working class areas of Rotterdam. The Luxor Theatre does not have its own company. They only have visiting shows. Here, I was talking about the spatiality of a theatre. Here you see this huge void of the stage, this incredible space, 40 meters high, and the red part is the auditorium where the public sit. And I said earlier that the function of the building was the generator for the building organization here. The main criteria with this competition was that the stage had to be at first floor level. Because the site was almost too small for the program, and the organizers of the competition realized that if the stage was at ground level, there would be no space left for foyers or for public functions. So the stage had to be at first floor level, which means with lots of visiting shows that the delivery trucks, which have to park beside the stage, have to be at first floor level. The question was how to get the delivery truck to first floor level. Our competitors, Hermann Herzberger did a very good architect who I respect enormously, designed a building with a lift which lifts up an 18-meter long truck to first floor level. But they have experience in Rotterdam with this system. It's expensive in terms of theatre running, because you have to have a safety man standing beside the lift all the time. And the cost of paying that man apparently makes it unaffordable. I don't know what safety men earn in Holland, but it was the argument from the theatre. Rem Koolhaas realized that the site was too small for the building, so he put it in the water next to the site. He can do that, it's his city. We decided to drive the trucks through the lobby of the building, which is this big trussed ramp that you see. We used the turning circles of the trucks for the geometry of the building. One sees here the plan. The ramp starts at the top, the trucks drive down, out into this nose across over the water, and then they back behind, beside the stage. There's a possibility for 3 trucks to park directly beside the stage here and to deliver directly onto on stage. We have been told it's the best functioning theatre in the Netherlands as well, which is also, I think, what architecture should aim to do, to function well. One sees in this this plan diagram, the plan is for us always the generative diagram of a building. One sees the absolutely critical theoretical line between stage and audience, this world between this border between the everyday world that we all experience and the space of illusion, the stage. We extended this line beyond the stage to the top of this picture and used the line of the stage as the entrance of the building, which means when you cross this line, you are moving from the everyday world of the city to the house of illusion. This is the Luxor Theatre seen from the harbour side, and you see our concept here. There's one big delivery truck parked on the delivery ramp. The result of this ramp concept is that the building becomes a sandwich of representative space, the restaurant on the ground floor, functional space, the truck ramp in the middle with the truss, and then representative space on top, a very big south-facing foyer. We then decided to move people through the building on the same trajectory as the truck, so that people walk on top of the box. The truck ramp is a box, or reads as a box inside the theatre. These are happy Rotterdammers progressing up this Promenade Architectural to the south foyer. The red object on the right-hand side is the auditorium itself. Unfortunately, we don't have time to see lots of plans of the Luxor Theatre. These buildings are very complex and require lots of explanation. But actually, the Luxor Theatre does not fit in the subject of my lecture of small buildings. But I put it in because it shows how one can move from small buildings to bigger buildings, from the Tower of Numbers to the Bridge Watcher's House to the Luxor Theatre. This was for us a very interesting location to be working on. This is another of our small buildings, the family of the Tokyo House or the Bridge Watcher's House. It's a building which in plan at ground level is only 1 meter wide. You see this very thick wall. It's the entrance to a factory building, a German company. It's a building which does not function by itself. It functions as a mask or as a new face for this company. Structurally, it can gain no support from the brick building on the left. It has one very big concrete foot underneath the entrance podium. I think this expression of structure or buildings which look like they want to fall over seems to be a theme of our work. None of our buildings have yet fallen over. This company is called Kaldewey. It's a German family company which make bathtubs. They make the Mercedes of bathtubs if you ever have to specify a bath for one of your wealthy clients. The Kaldewey bathtubs are made by pressing 3.5mm steel over a mold. It's a fantastic process to watch. The steel is handled by robotic arms. The people who work in the factory all work in cages to save being injured by the robot arms. When the steel is pressed over the mold of the bath, it screams of and then you have a bathtub, and a robot arm picks up the bathtub, takes it across and puts the enamel coat on. The next robot takes it away again. We were really impressed by this process, but what we were dealing with was representation. This is the new entrance pavilion. Mr. Kaldewey Senior, the father of the Kaldewey Junior, who now runs the company, was retiring and wanted to give the company a big present. Behind our building is the factory with all these robots inside, this old 1920s building. Our function was to add 2 new meeting rooms and a way into the entrance foyer. The foyer is inside the existing building. This sketch is the key to understanding the whole building. The rooms on the right-hand side are the offices which are cantilevered over the entrance. The double-height space on the left is inside the existing building, and there is a spiral stair which is a very small promenade architectural which leads guests up from the reception desk to the first floor meeting room. That's the same room when built. Very small pieces of architecture, just a staircase and a desk and a wall made of wood, and another wall dematerialized. This is a light wall from the company Sumtobel, who we've also done a showroom for. This is I think you heard before from Marco that our work is very carefully detailed, and this is one of our, or the pieces which we like the most. One sees on the wooden wall on the right-hand side there are black panels. These are all the building services, which you have to have in any building. Lighting and air outlets are in cassettes integrated in the Mondrian pattern of the wooden panels. This is another building for the firm Caldevey. I was saying that the baths are made by robots, and this is a customer showroom to show their products. If you buy a bath from Caldevey, they make whirlpool baths. To buy a whirlpool bath is about the same as buying a small car. It's an expensive item to buy, and if you buy a small car, you want to test drive it first. So in this building, you can test your new bathtub. The facade of the building is made of the same material as the Caldevey baths, enameled steel in all the possible colors. You can get bathtubs. I think today everybody has a white bath. Nobody has a brown bath anymore. This was the 1960s. The 3 terracotta containers on the right are what they used to use to transport quartz to make enamel. And the lines on the pavement are the plan of the original family house of the family Caldevey. We demolished their family house to build this building. They were hoping we would use the family house as the showroom, but we wiped out their family history, except that you still have to walk through the plan of the house to enter the showroom. Mr. Caldevey Sr. told us that one of these rooms that you see here was his childhood bedroom, and he was very happy that he could walk through his childhood bedroom every time he goes to the showroom. This is the inside of our showroom. We wanted to treat the bath and shower trays as works of art, and they look like Sol LeWitt or Carl Andre artworks. They're spotlit. We called this room the salon with the bathtubs in it. This is our office on our office visit to the finished building. And in the basement there are 5 different bathrooms with whirlpool baths. We also designed changing rooms where you can take your clothes off, get a bathrobe, and go and test the different whirlpool baths. We made a very interesting sociological discovery here. When German customers go and test a new bath, each customer wants new water in their bathtub. Very unsustainable. They throw the water away after one person's tested the bath. They had a busload of Belgian people here, and the Belgians were very happy to jump in and out of other people's bath water. Nothing against Belgians, but very sustainable. This I put in with the link to bathrooms. This is a building made from a stone which one can normally only afford in bathrooms. It's called Macaubas Azul. It's a blue quartzite stone from South America. This is a German bank. Another competition we won in the east of Germany. This was not long after the 2 Germanys united. This is a German bank flexing its muscle, building 2 blocks in the city of Magdeburg. When we won this competition, our competition drawings showed a building with a red facade. The bankers, once we'd won, said, "Nice building, we like it, but the color has to change." We said, "Yes, of course, the communists passed. Of course, it can't be red." They said, "No, our rival bank has a red logo. Our logo is blue." So they had to have a blue facade, but they also had to have a stone facade. There's a quote from Adolf Loos, which is no longer true. Adolf Loos said that a bank must say that in this house your money is well looked after by honest people. I think nobody would believe that of bankers anymore. But these bankers wanted a stone facade, so we searched the world for a blue stone. There was only one. We used half a year's production from this one quarry. The stone all had to come to Italy first. It had to go to Carrara to be cut. I think Italy has a monopoly on cutting stone. We had a very nice visit to Carrara. We went in the private jet of our bank, a very small jet. It was like flying in a cigar tube. It was actually a real punishment to have to talk interest rates with bankers in a cigar tube for 2 hours was really difficult. We arrived in Carrara and they gave us a wonderful lunch, and our German bankers said, it's 2 o'clock, why aren't we working? And it was explained to them, it's Italy, it's lunchtime. the lunch was much better than the flight with the bankers. Another facade, this time in metal. This is our own office building in Münster in Germany. I would put it in the category of small buildings. It's only 3,500 square meters. It's a loft building. A loft building means a building which is able to be used for any possible program, office or showroom or residential. This is a building which was, with our pragmatic philosophy, designed by German building regulations. The Germans like to have single-cell offices. And if you have a single-cell office, each office must have an opening window. These are the small vertical windows. So it's possible to divide up the large facade space into single offices. On every floor, according to German fire regulations, there must be one opening window at least 1 meter wide. This is for firemen to rescue people with their ladder. That one sees on the second top floor. When we put all of these regulations together, and also for the rest of the facade to the offices, we have a fixed glass which cannot be open. It gave us a particular window layout. With a few shifts of this window layout, we developed a panel system which fits in a Mondrian-like pattern between. The panels are actually made by anodized aluminium, a very nice surface which is, when there's no sunlight, which is very, very dark without sunlight, and then lights up with sunlight. It's a building which has different moods. We like to describe the quality of the facade as being like light reflecting on oil, or perhaps like the colors in a Paul Klee painting. This is our design drawing for the distribution of colors on the facade. This is the section through the loft building. One sees each floor very big, very, very wide. It's 22 meters deep. On one side there's a harbor, on one side a street, with a box projecting out over the street. You see here the box which projects over the street also acts as a canopy. And inside our own office, a little essay. I would call this staircase a small building. It's a staircase where the vertical steel plates are structural. They're supporting the stair. It's a staircase which is to do with the rituals of daily life. As we walk through the office, we walk up this stair. The stair causes you to turn around and walk in a different direction. At the top of the stair, one finds oneself facing the secretary. From there, one talks to the secretary, gets the gossip of the day. And the stair is in itself like a little theatre. This is the roof of the same building, my own private studio, and highly sustainable, the roof landscape, which is planted with alpine plants. The philosophy of green roofs is that if you put plants on the roof, you are not reducing the amount of green area on the surface of the earth. You are putting it back on the roof of your building. These alpine plants are the only ones that will grow here because it's extremely windy. Another little building with the same anodized aluminium panels. This is in Hamburg, part of a much bigger project. You can see it's a bigger project. You don't need this many cranes to build a building that small. It's part of a competition we won to restore the only historic building remaining in the harbour city of Hamburg. This is the building in the middle. Our little pavilion's on the left, and on the right is a tall tower, like a campanile, a very thin tower, a residential tower. It was originally designed with 7 apartments, only 7 apartments, luxury apartments. They're all duplex apartments on 2 floors. The big window is the living room, the smaller windows are the bedroom level. As we designed this scheme further, it's a small building because it has a small plan. As we designed it further, our clients asked us to make some apartments bigger and some smaller, so we now have some 1-floor apartments and 1 3-floor apartment. This is a little sketch drawing, the sort of drawing we do as a project develops. It was at one time our clients were considering building a market hall next to the tower. These were 2 studies for different roofs for the market hall. One pneumatic and 1 solid growing out of the tower. Another smallish building. This is a building which faces a water landscape. It's a little office pavilion which has sunscreens. I like this transition. I often do it 10 times in a lecture. The difference here is that the sunscreens are not directly on the glass. They're at a distance to the facade. When they're down, they make a space between. This sort of between space is like the balcony outside a Japanese house. The Japanese call this space, which is neither inside nor outside, they call it ma. Ma is a special word for things which are between. It's like the space between two notes of music. Our client here was very happy with this space. It's a very sad story I'll tell in a minute. In this building, it's possible to put on rubber boots and first of all, here's the sunscreen, or the building with sunscreen, without sunscreen. It's possible to put on rubber boots and take a walk in the landscape. It's like walking in the Mekong Delta. But after a while, one gets to a very strange, surreal moment. The landscape stops. It's like the flat earth theory. This is the end of the world. Whoops, you can fall over. This is not a landscape. It's the roof of a building. Our client, who owns a lot of shops selling furniture, came back from a holiday in Bali. He'd been in a hotel with an infinity pool, and he said, "I must have an infinity pool." We said, "Please don't. We architects spend our whole life trying to keep water out of building, and you want to put water on the roof of your building?" But he insisted, so we had to go through the whole process of designing the details and the technology to put water on the roof. This is the result. The building is a warehouse building, 2 floors of warehouse, and he has his office on the roof. You see right next to it is a very normal German suburb. A very, very strange program, and you have to have crazy clients to do a building like this. The sad part of the story is that our client died this year. He died from cancer. And on the day he died, he had himself moved from his home to his office. He had his bed put in his office, and he actually died looking at this roof. This is what you need as an architect, clients who will die for your building. This is a plan of the same roof. You see it's a 60 by 60 meters square, the warehouse. The section tells the whole story. The delivery truck on the right delivers to the 2 floors of warehouse, and on the top, the roof with the water and the offices. We had to develop a special edge detail, because in Germany the water freezes in winter and expands, and we don't want it pushing out and breaking the building. We also got nervous while planning and consulted a hydraulic engineer and said, will we have problems with waves on the roof? He did some calculations, said, yes, you will have a problem. If you have a strong wind, you will get waves 40 centimeters high on one side, or the wind will push the water to one side. It will be 40 centimeters high on one side than the other, which means a 40 centimeter wave coming over the edge was a disaster for our structural engineer. He said that's too much water. It'll destroy the building. So we had to design we had to do special designs. We had to put compartments under below the water level and break the volume of the water down into 9 different compartments, so that we would only get mini tsunamis rather than one maximum tsunami. This is the building from the street. It's a warehouse building, an industrial building, a very economical facade. It's a self-insulating, self-supporting precast concrete panel, the colored stripes. The metal stripes are ventilation slits. Normally in industrial buildings you have roof lights or roof exits for smoke. If the building catches fire, the smoke has to come out through the roof. This is not possible because we have water on the roof. So that we have to vent have our fire vents in the facade. We integrated the fire vents in the pajama stripes of the facade. You'll see all my explanations are very long. I'm explaining how we solve practical problems. We are not architects who have a vision and say, my building is leaning sideways, or my building looks like spaghetti. I mean, we are architects who simply solve problems. The last problem was how to get the water on the roof. There we called in the fire brigade. They were very happy to do it. They had a new fire engine. They wanted to test it, but they were very worried that the building was not on fire. When we finished, the 2 fire chiefs came on the roof and were very pleased with their work. We gave them a crate of beer for the firemen, and everyone was happy. Another small building, this time it's a church. In Germany there's probably a problem you don't have in Italy. In Germany there's a problem of lots of churches are closing. And what to do with the churches? The churches are, in terms of the plan of the city, very important buildings. They anchor neighborhoods. This was a competition where it was expected we would demolish the church and build new housing and a kindergarten. But this building we like very much. It's a very fine church from 1962, a piece of functionalism, or a very fine oval shape. We decided in the competition to keep the church and to put the kindergarten in the church. Everybody said, good idea, nice idea. So, and we won the competition. Then the problem started. The first problem was that the floor of the church was 1.50 meters higher than the surrounding site. In the kindergarten, there's very small children. We have children here between or younger than 3 years, and they have to be able to run out from the kindergarten to the playground without any steps. So we had to drive our heavy building equipment inside the church and lower the floor. That was the first problem. The next problem was our structural engineer went up into the roof, and it was built in 1962, shortly after the war in Germany, and built with very, very minimal timber trusses. And the structural engineer came back and shook his head and said, we're lucky that roof hasn't fallen down. So we had to replace the roof, which was fine. It was not fine, it was very expensive. Much of our budget went on a new roof. But when they took the roof off, they discovered that the walls were not stable without the roof. I had always learnt in an architecture school that a circle or an oval was a stable shape, but here apparently not. So during the construction phase, we had to fill the interior of the church with scaffolding, which as an architect is of course a wonderful game to play. It reminds one of Konrad Waxman or Jona Friedman. And I climbed up myself around this scaffolding and took these pictures. Building sites are very good playgrounds. So this is our concept model for the interior of the church. The church is much bigger than we needed for the kindergarten, or the church is much too high for a kindergarten. This was our design model, the church with 1.5 levels of kindergarten. This was the drawing which got us through the planning process. This is one of my own drawings, which is so childish that everybody liked it. All the children's parents liked it, all the politicians liked it, it was in the newspaper, the public liked it. So we got permission to build this building very easily because of this very childish, happy drawing. I advise you to do childish, happy drawings. This is the plan for architects, much more serious. We needed much of the site for housing. We're currently building 50 apartments on the edge of this site. There's a rule in Germany that for kindergartens have groups of 20 or so children. For every group you have to have 250 square meters of outside play space. We did not have enough site for all this play space, so we decided to designate the roof of the building inside as play space. This means that we have inside-outside space. The green area here is inside-outside play space. It's outside because it's not heated. We took the glass out of the little square windows. And in winter it's cold. The children have to put on their anoraks to play underneath the roof. It's weather-protected play space. One sees here a new roof. We also put in street lights, so because it's inside-outside, we put in 1950s street lights to make it feel like outside. We also put on the floor these big images of hands and feet. Kindergartens are to do with scale. The scale of a child, the scale of an adult. A normal door for a child or a normal adult door is very big for a child. It's like a giant scale. We introduced a third scale here, these giant footprints on the floor. I had read a very beautiful description from Arata Isozaki about a Japanese temple which has in front of it 2 footprints, and they are meant to be the footprints of a giant invisible Buddha who visited from the Pure Land in the West. I like this description so much. I wanted giant footprints of an invisible kindergarten teacher here. The kindergarten teachers tell us that the children don't read these as footprints. It's much too big for them. They simply read them as white lines on the ground and make games about being inside and outside or running around the edge. It's also a very good idea, I think. And here's one running on the edge of the hand. This is the outside of the church converted to a kindergarten. In the foreground is what the Germans call a bobby car track. Bobby cars, little children's cars. If German children are to grow up to drive at 150 200 kilometers on the autobahn, they have to start early learning to drive and to learn the rules of the road. So they actually do that in kindergarten on their bobby car track. These are our happy customers. Another not small building. This is a shop for the same client who had built the water roof. This is a factory built during the Second World War. It's called the U-Boot-Halle, the submarine hall. It's built in Hanover, which is 250 kilometers from the sea. Maybe it explains why the Germans lost the war. They built their submarines too far from the ocean. This building is now a historic building, fantastic structure. Our client wanted to use one slice of it as a shop. This is one of the few digital images in my lecture. Our client is a good businessman, rented the floor space, and then he figured out, if I build a second level, I get that rent free. So that was our brief, to build the second floor space, to put the shopping on the upper level. The lower level is warehouse space. It's like IKEA. His customers come and see furniture in his showroom, go around the back and pick up the sofa they've bought. And I consider this a landscape project simply because of the scale of the industrial shed. And this is the staircase we put in. We thought it was going to be a staircase for displaying furniture, but the fire department would not allow us to put anything burnable on the staircase. Quite right as well. It's a beautiful stair. It should stay empty. The problem here is that the use of the building is threatening the grandeur of the space. But I think these steel structures actually win the battle. The furniture becomes for us like small pixels here, simply ephemeral information, and the steel structure is the dominant characteristic of the space. I'm not sure how we're going for time. I think we have. I've got 3 or 4 more bigger projects I could explain in detail if we have time. I've been told we have a dinner reservation in 2 hours, so I'm happy to talk for 2 hours if you're happy to stay. Marco Miscajuri spoke about the Münster Library, which was the first big building we built. We were at the time of winning the competition, a small office in London. We were teachers at the AA. We had a small office doing interior work. My wife, Julia Bolles, comes from the city of Münster, a small medieval city in Germany. Well, it was once a medieval city. It was completely bombed flat in the Second World War. We won the competition to build the new city library, which one sees here. One sees our library, the white building on the left, pushing up close to the old library, a Flemish guild hall. Our intention here was to maintain the scale of the historic city, to do an obviously modern building, but which fitted the scale and the street pattern of the historic city. We also here developed or experimented with materials. These are 2 blue glazed brick extensions to the back of the library, to the interior courtyard. At one moment in planning, we discovered that the whole program did not fit inside the building, and we had to extend into the courtyard. So these became for us like architectural figures or like masks. The white building itself is a modern abstract functional volume. One sees here the white building with another mask in front, a copper mask. We divided this building we cut it in the middle like slicing a cake. On one side, the building in the background here is an information building. On the just the tip of the foreground building is the actual library with all the book stacks. The cutting in half had 3 reasons. One was to break down the volume of the building so it would fit the scale of the morphology of the historic city. The second was to make a new street which passes through the middle of the library. It's possible here, before entering the library, to stand in the middle of the library. If you stand on this street, you are right in the middle of the library, and if you look through the windows, you see the library all around you. This is before you've entered the library. We are trying to fold together public space and internal library space. The other question of cutting was, once one's made a cut, one has a wound, and one has to put a band-aid on the wound, or a bandage on the wound. We put these big copper roofs as bandages to close the opening on both sides of the street. The copper roofs also describe the trajectory of walking spaces inside the library. We had a big argument here with the fire department. Is it a wall or is it a roof? We said it was a roof, and the fire department said it was a wall. The fire department won, which made the building more expensive because we had to put much more fire insulation inside the wall. Roofs need less fire insulation. We thought when we were designing this building, we were designing a very modest building. We had a section with a slightly folded line. We found when we built it that this folded line projected in the length of the building was an enormously strong gesture in the city. And this copper roof is one of our favorite architectural elements. This is the inside of the copper roof. One sees with the wooden panels. The wooden panels are all perforated. They are acoustically absorptive. I once walked through this library with Ettore Sotzas. Ettore Sotzas, as he walked through, very perceptively said, "This building feels like a library. It feels like a library because of the sound quality, because we have so much absorptive surface, and all the sounds are sucked in there, and it simply has the ambience, the aura of a library." All of our movement spaces are below these big walls, the big roofs, roof wall. The roof walls are supported on laminated timber beams, which lean against the main building with these two arms. These are the sort of details Marco was talking about in the introduction. On the right-hand side is the catalogue space. The catalogue space used to be very big and had little drawers with cards in them, very beautiful things to plan and to detail. The cards have now all been thrown away, and the whole catalogue is in one or two computer screens behind. You can see I'm a pre-digital dinosaur. This is underneath the second copper roof, the book building. One sees the books in the background, the bookshelves, and the staircases here as Promenade Architectural, which move people through the buildings. This roof is facing, or the top of this roof has a window which faces south. The sun in winter comes in from the south windows, reflects off the wooden walls, and brings a very nice warm light deep into the building. This is the same acoustic walls. 2 years ago, we were asked to build in a mechanical book transport system. It was the price, or to have people working at a desk is more expensive than to have a machine and a digital check-in, check-out system. So these two boxes are our mechanical library return system. This is the bookshelf in the Münster Library. We did not have the budget to design new bookshelves, but we did have enough money to design a foot for the bookshelf. This is a cast aluminium foot which translates the conventional 1960s steel bookshelf into Bolles+Wilson language. Another library. Libraries have become our specialty, even though Milano was not that successful. This is another competition win. As you see, all of our big buildings come from competitions. We spend most of our time working on competitions. We do 15 to 20 competitions every year. This is the National Library of Luxembourg. A competition we won in 2005. It went to sleep for 8 years and then came back again, and now it's alive and on site. It houses the National Archive of Luxembourg, a very small country, so it's as if it houses the memory of Luxembourg. The stone box at the back is the actual archive, which has to be like a bunker. It has to be bomb-proof and everything else proof. We'll see it in section in a minute. This is the entrance, a red precast concrete facade, which then folds down like a funnel, which funnels the visitors deep into the library space. Maybe one word about models. These models we make in our office. We have a wooden workshop. We much prefer to make models than to do digital renders. The wooden model is a very good design tool. Once you made a decision and you make something in wood, it's very difficult to go back and change your mind. Or you have to have a lot of time to sand it on the sanding machine. This is a section through the same Luxembourg library. One sees the archives on the right-hand side, 5 floors, underground archives. These archives we treated like a plateau, like a landform. The rest of the library steps up like terraces for visitors, or there are reading terraces on each level. The sloping entrance on the left is what we saw from the street side. This building is highly sustainable. Our clients, the Bâtiment Public, the building department of Luxembourg, decided to contradict the European Union laws on sustainability. The European Union laws on sustainability require buildings to have a 30 to 50 centimeter overcoat of thermal insulation. Not a good idea in terms of building climate. It means the buildings are airtight, and in cold climates it means that it's difficult to ventilate them, which means that you develop fungus and molds on the inside of buildings. Our clients here asked us to do a highly sustainable building where we use the thermal mass of the building materials to actually to use the storage capacity of concrete and brick to store cool from nighttime. We cool the building at nighttime by opening all the windows. It's called thermal purging, where the windows have to be open at night. It cools down at nighttime. It cools down in summer. All the materials cool down and keep the building cool during the day. We use the same system for the archive. The archive has to stay at 18 degrees all year round. We do this without any air conditioning, which is quite extraordinary, that we can do it simply by using thick walls and by insulating the archives with a passage on the outside from the outside world. The books have to stay at 18 degrees. They're old historic books. If you bring them out of the archive too quickly for people to look at them, they get something called book shock. And if a book gets book shock, it starts to grow mold, and it's the end. You can throw it away. So the books have to take 1 day to come out of the archive in small stages, getting slowly warmer from 18 degrees to 22 degrees. It was a very big learning curve for us working on this building to learn all these precise requirements of librarians. This is the same model you saw before from the outside, from the inside. Here we have made all the tables and all the bookshelves, and you see we have a very big roof with roof lights. We also have to be very careful with windows here, because all the windows have to face north. We're not allowed to have any sunlight inside the library. Sunlight is very dangerous in libraries, apparently. On the left-hand side, the wall, which is slightly grey, is made from bricks which have holes in them. This is to increase the surface of the bricks so they have more absorptive capacity for heat, to cool the building in summer or to keep it warm in winter. And one sees here 4 different terraces leading up to the deck on top of the archive. This is a plan with the archive on the right, the entrance on the left, all the bookshelves in orange, and graphic technique we developed for the BEIC in Milano. And just speaking of the BEIC in Milano, this is our wooden model for the building that Milano will not get. Your misfortune. This is a 1 to 50 model of the BEIC, very big model, which can be opened apart. The interiors are also there. We spent a few months making this model, which was a very important exercise for making lots of design decisions. One sees that the building has a large central volume, the orange part. This is 32 meters high, which is, I think, the maximum height for building in Milano. This is the interior, inside that orange volume. A large salon, the center of the library, the heart of the library. And the library itself functions as different decks, different reading decks, which step up, a technique we've borrowed for our Luxembourg library. The wall panels here are also in acoustically absorbing wood, 2 different colors. This is not a professional photo. That was a professional photo. This is our own photo of the interior, which I like very much, because it's what we were aiming to create, the ambience of people moving through a building filled by daily life. Libraries are very important buildings today. They're one of the few buildings in a city which are not about commerce. They're not about taking the money out of your pocket. They're public spaces, and it's the sort of building one finds in the Nolly plan, which is permeable interior space where everybody is welcome inside. They're like a public living room. I think this is probably the last project, a recent project in the Netherlands. Our office is quite close to the Dutch border. We have, apart from the Luxor Theatre, we've built a few other buildings in the Netherlands. This is part of a very large urban development, a whole new quarter in Haarlem. Haarlem is, I think, the most protected historic city in the Netherlands. It's very difficult to build new buildings in Haarlem. This one is it started off with a very commercial function. It used to be a casino and a cinema center, bioscope they call it in Holland. It used to have the casino on top and the cinema on top and the casino underneath. Then we changed it around and put the casino underground. Then the casino did not get a permit to be built, and then the casino became a city hall, which for me means that gamblers and politicians are interchangeable. As I said, it's part of a larger development. There's lots of housing behind it. I'll show you the site plan in a minute. Maybe no. It's part of a larger development. While we were working on the details, the director of planning in Haarlem gave us we did workshops with him, and he said, I only have two things to ask you for this building. One, don't forget the clock tower, and two, think of Dudok, the Dutch modernist architect. We did both, and the building has a clock tower and a facade which we would like to think is influenced by Dudok. The facade is brick. It's all the same brick. It looks like two different colors. This is because the bricks are laid in different patterns, and we used a different color mortar joint. We were surprised at how much articulation one can bring into a facade with very small changes like that. We also, with this building, this is this site plan. Our building is the dark red on the top left. The other buildings are by different, or by Dutch architects. Klaus and Kahn converted a school to housing, and other architects did shopping. One can see how the street network connects to the morphology of the existing city. Very small scale Dutch, and our building happens to be a very big building. We cut a passage through our building to make it like, well, I think our model was certainly Italian cities. When we were at this time working in Perugia on our Monte Luce project, and this sort of space or passage which goes underneath buildings influenced us very much. One sees on the left here this brick surface, highly articulated, one brick course in four brought forward to cast small shadow lines. These are the plans. I won't explain them in detail, except you see the bottom plan, the cinema, and then the ground level plan with government offices, and the upper floor is also government offices. The ground level offices are public access. There's also a very big underground car park. You see 4 lanes of cars coming in and out on the right-hand side. A very complex program which produced a singular building volume with this highly articulated facade. This is our drawing of the facade before it was built. One sees there's this black box window. We developed a window type, which is a black wooden frame covered in a white plastic or black plastic coating. The window can set behind the facade, flush with the facade, or push forward from the facade, which gave us a lot of chances of giving the facade a third dimension. One sees here on the top floor on the left, the windows coming forward, and the small square windows are flush with the facade. This is the entrance to the town hall. Close-up of the brickwork. We were also asked here to recycle some components of the 19th century building which used to be on this site. These small steel crosses are steel anchors which we recycled from the old building. The sculptures are 1950s sculptures we were asked to integrate. One sees here we are dealing with an architectural language which is to do with big volumes and small details. I think this building very much sums up the philosophy of Bolles+Wilson, this mixture of big and small, buildings which are modern but which also fit into historic contexts. The same building, street facade. You see here the windows projecting forward and moving back into the facade. I think that's my last slide, my last image. I'm happy to answer questions if anyone wants to ask any.